Babes, there are certain houseplants that used to be super ubiquitous. You could pretty much find them everywhere about 2-3 years ago in your coastal farms, your big box stores. But now it seems like those plants, they pretty much disappeared out of the radar. So I've compiled a list of such plants and I'm going to go on an investigative deep dive as to what may have happened. Why aren't these plants popular? Why can't we find them again? Why aren't they being sold anymore? Why aren't people buying them anymore? As usual, it's going to be an interesting video. So grab your popcorn, grab anything you want. Let's get to the nitty-gritty. The first plant we definitely need to talk about is the Peperomia hope. Do you remember when this girlie hit the houseplant scene about 2 or 3 years ago? Back then, it was being marketed as an extremely easy and indoor friendly. I remember the marketing was being pitched as a Peperomia that does well indoors and was specifically made to be grown indoors. And for a very long time, this was my wish list house plant because it just looked absolutely gorgeous. It looked so cute. I eventually acquired a Peperomia hope myself, and I will attest to the fact that this is actually an easy plant, at least in my experience. It is also quite drought tolerant for a Peperomia, and honestly it didn't give me any issues. I remember a lot of the YouTube girlies back then also talked about this plant. I watched a couple of their care videos. I mean, it was a fascinating introduction in the houseplant market, especially because a lot of us back then were scared by Peperomias, and here was this Peperomia being branded as easy, which many attested that it truly was. So what happened? Why did this Peperomia, a seemingly easy, cute looking Peperomia, fall out of favor amongst the plant community? Well, I think it's because of how this Peperomia grows. Okay, so when this Peperomia is young and beautiful, it's compact and succulent and looks cute. But as the plant continues to grow, it's a trailing Peperomia. It trails downwards and honestly starts to look like a frightening demonic sight to behold. So it's a plant that tends to be quite leggy as it trails, and there tends to be a lot of space between the leaf and the internode. So yes, you're gonna have an easy trailing Peperomia, but just something that doesn't look nice. It looks like a skeletal thing with lumps scattered around its stems. So yeah, that was actually why I lost interest in this plant. It went from a plant that I really liked to a plant that I was like, ew, please, who wants this? Take it from me. Give me any money and take it from me. I eventually sold mine off, and I remember I was having a discussion with a friend a while back. We both got this plant at the same time, and I was like, babes, how is your Peperomia hope? Is it still alive? And she was like, yes, but she doesn't like it anymore because she doesn't like how it grows. And I think that is why this Peperomia isn't a popular sight anymore. People just caught on to the fact that this doesn't grow really well. It's beautiful, but it doesn't stay beautiful, and therefore I guess they stopped buying it, and as a result this plant grower stopped stocking it. That is my theory. But I'm curious to know your thoughts as well. Have you ever grown this Peperomia hope? Or do you see it around anymore? Let me know your thoughts in the comments as to why this Peperomia hope isn't the it girl of the Peperomia society anymore. Yeah. This next one is a Philodendron. I know some of y'all, in fact most of y'all, don't really care about Philodendrons anymore. I remember when Philodendrons were like the ultimate genus, like the Instagram girlies. It had them on a chokehold. So lots of Philodendrons have actually fallen out of favor amongst collectors, I guess. But there's this particular Philodendron that never took off. I remember when it was introduced to the houseplant market like 3 years ago, back when we're all crazy about Philodendrons, and it just never looked like something one would want to buy as a houseplant. It's a Philodendron atom. First of all, it had a very weird name. Atom just reminded me of like science chemistry class that I dreaded. And also, this thing looks like a vegetable. Does this plant not look like a vegetable, guys? Like, it looks like an edible, like broccoli, something that belongs in the broccoli family. So even though at that point it was like a mysterious looking philodendron, and we were all crazy about philodendrons back then, I feel like this never took off. In the Nigerian plant market, it never took up. Back then I was a big philodendron collector. I bought it, but at one point I was like, why am I growing something that looks like, a vegetable that I don't even like to eat? Do you get what I mean? I feel like they really tried to sell this plant to us back in the day, but we were not buying it. We honestly were not buying it, literally and figuratively, and that is why this plant just fell off the radar. I'm curious to know though, have you ever heard of the philodendron atom before? And is this a plant that you would actually buy, now if you saw it again? Also, do you agree with me? Doesn't this look like a vegetable? Doesn't this remind you of a bitter vegetable that your parents forced you to eat as a child? Let me know in the comments. But yeah. This next one is actually behind me. It's behind me, and it was actually the plant that inspired this video. It's also another philodendron. It's a heartleaf philodendron, guys. I remember back in the day 2020, 2021, when I first got into houseplants, this plant was everywhere. Like, I remember on everyone's Instagram page, on every website, this was being branded as a go-to low light tolerant indoor friendly plant, which is true. This is a heartleaf philodendron, by the way. This is actually a low light tolerant, indoor friendly, and also drought tolerant plant as well. It also grows really fast. So what happened? I bought this the other day, and it was just such a massive wave of nostalgia when I saw it, because I hadn't seen it in such a long time, and I was like, oh my god, I need to have this. What happened, girlies? Well, actually, I think I know what happens. I think why a lot of people just fell out of love with the heartleaf philodendron, whether it is trailing or whether it is growing on a pole, is that the plant can grow to be quite scruffy or scrawny. I think that's the word. It can just grow to be really unruly and difficult to manage and difficult to style. In one of my videos, I actually tried to style this plant when I got it, and at one point I got frustrated, and I remember thinking, oh, this is probably why this plant this is probably why people stopped buying this plant, because it can become quite difficult to style and quite difficult to wrap around the pole, and it can become quite, frightening looking in your home, and people just don't want to have to deal with having to chop and propagate. I mean, I feel like we don't have all that time and energy like we used to back then, during the Panini era, 2020, 2021. Now we just want a plant that, grows beautifully, with minimal maintenance. You don't have to constantly have to chop, rearrange, style. And I think this is where this actually fell off. So that's my rationale as to why this plant, this otherwise really easy plant, just fell out of interest. I'm curious to know, however, if you saw a philodendron heartleaf on a pole, would you buy it? Would you buy it again? Honestly, I'm glad I did. I think it looks beautiful here. I think one of the purposes of this video is to just remind you that these plants once existed, and perhaps maybe you should try them again or add them to your collection again. I feel like back then, we houseplant people during the 2020-2021 era, we just used to buy plants for very tiny indistinguishable differences, which leads me to the next plant I'm going to talk about. I feel like we've outgrown that as collectors, and we're not as impressionable as we used to. I don't know about you, but I certainly have. Yeah, I'm talking about the global green pothos. Do you remember when this plant came into the houseplant market? It was being branded as, a new pothos variety, and the only difference this plant had, I think at one point it was a global green versus an emerald pothos, and the difference was one had inner variegation, the other had outer variegation. You just couldn't tell the difference. In my eyes, this just looked like a reverted pothos enjoyed. But back then, those little differences, the variegation is thinner, oh, the variegation is wider. We were just so gullible and impressionable. Like, what was going on? When this plant came into the market, that was like the selling point. You're getting the Pothos that the variegation is, on the outside, and if you want the one that has the inner variegation, get the other Pothos. Girl, what was wrong with us? I can't imagine falling for all of that now. So I feel that is why this plant just fell out of grace, fell out of interest, and you don't typically see them being stocked as readily because people woke up. We stopped being impressionable as we used to be, and we stopped falling for all these plants that were just clear money grabs. Yeah, I'm curious to know though, did you ever get a global green Pothos? Have you heard of it before? If you saw it today, would you buy it? I'm curious to know, darling, so please let me know in the comments, okay? This is another one that was a recent money grab. I feel like this one I think came to the market maybe 2 years ago. A recent money grab to me doesn't make sense. It's a ZZ chameleon. Have you heard of that? It was being branded as a ZZ that has yellow variegated leaves that gradually fades into a green. I don't know about you, but I certainly wasn't buying it. Literally and figuratively, to me, it just felt like, okay, it didn't look interesting enough. Your ZZ Zenzi, your ZZ Raven, oh, those are beautiful ZZs. Of course, your standard ZZs, those are like beautiful with distinguishable differences. This one just felt like, okay, here we go again. They want us to spend our money the way we were spending it in 2020, 2021. We have wisened up. We have grown up. We don't fall for some of these marketing tactics. I don't know about you, but certainly not me at the ripe old age of 36. Those tactics that worked in 2020, 2021, they ain't working for us anymore. So I feel like this is probably why, so again, these are my theories, this is probably why the ZZ chameleon, you don't hear about it anymore, you don't see it anymore. I watch a lot of American houseplant tour videos and big box store shopping videos. I don't see y'all even focus on it or even spot it. So I want to believe that, yeah, the girlies aren't feeling this plant. Now, this is one that I feel like the rise of social media, in fact, these next two plants, I feel like the rise of social media honestly contributed to the demise and popularity of these plants. And that's because they are not Instagrammable. I believe that in this social media era, how a plant looks on your TV and your phone screen ultimately influences the relevance of that plant. And this is a plant that just isn't photogenic or videogenic. Yeah, it's a cast iron plant. Yeah, it's a cast iron plant, and it breaks my heart to say this because this is actually, as the name implies, this is a very indestructible, almost indestructible plant that takes neglect, hence the name cast iron. This plant was very popular amongst the Victorians. The Victorians really loved it, and also like in the 70s, the 80s, and 90s, the pre-social media era. But when the social media girlies started developing an interest in houseplants, yeah, this was just a hard sell, honestly. And it is indeed quite a hard sell. As somebody who sells plants, I literally have to convince people that, look, as the name implies, it's not the best looking plant. I'm not gonna lie, it just looks like a weed. In fact, some weeds even look better than this plant, right? But you're gonna get a plant that it's alive. It could be a decorative plant you just keep in the corner. So I have to really preach and go the extra mile just to convince people to buy this plant. And even at that, they do so seemingly reluctantly. So I guess this is probably why a lot of growers don't readily stock this plant as much. Also, this is a plant that grows really slowly. So getting a full mature specimen can be difficult, and then it can be expensive. So you have a plant that doesn't look nice, grows slowly, and can be expensive. So what is the incentive to actually buy it or even stock it, as a grower? So yeah, for that reason, I feel like the cast iron plant is just one that you don't find as easily, or you don't see lots of people buying. Yeah, even though it is a very, very good house plant, I strongly recommend it. And I'm curious to know, would you buy this plant? Not necessarily for its beauty, but just as a decorative filler house plant that you can dump somewhere in a medium to low light corner. Yeah. Now this next one, they used to be really popular plants back in the day. You will see a lot of them in like old school Nigerian houses, and then when I see them now, they still give me this nostalgia effect. But our generation, our social media generation, we millennials, we just don't like this plant. It's an entire genus, it's not even a plant. Aralias. Yeah. Aralias, whether it is the Ming Aralia, the Fabian Aralia, I don't know why, but I don't see a lot of it in your collections. I don't see a lot of people growing this as a house plant. Over in this part of the world, it's actually grown as an outdoor hedge plant, but it's something that is becoming increasingly difficult to find because there just isn't enough demand for it. As somebody who actually sells plants for a living, I've come to realize that honestly certain plants will just put you at a loss because people don't want those plants, so you unfortunately just have to stock plants that people want and people like. And I think that is a problem with Aralias. I remember one particular time somebody ordered for this plant for a landscaping project that they wanted me to do. And I just figured, okay, this is a somewhat common plant. I could easily find it. But boy, was I wrong. I went every single grower, asking them, please, where can I find this? I remember one grower looked me in the eye and was like, no, I don't stock that plant. I want to make money, so I don't stock that plant. What is it? Which, if you're a business-minded grower, obviously it makes a lot of sense. There's a particular Aralia that I really like, and I'm currently on the hunt for. It's a Fabian Aralia. I've talked about it before. That Aralia, honestly, I feel like that needs to have a major comeback because it's just so beautiful and statuesque, and it is iconic. As usual, let me know, what are your thoughts on the Aralia genus? Is this something that you want your big box stores to actually stock more readily? Let me know your thoughts in the comments, babes. So my darlings, we have actually come to the end of this video. I wanted to keep it short and cute as usual. And what did you think of this list? Like, do you agree with me? I honestly had to sit down and think, guys. This video, I had to sit down and think and meditate and really reflect on plants back then that I used to be popular, but now I don't see them anymore. So I'm curious, do you agree with this list? Are these plants still popular where you are? And would you buy these plants now if they came back, or if you ran across them? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Let's continue this conversation in the comments. Until then, I'll see you in the next one. Bye, my loves.